Hello, Mgtows. Hello, man. I'm just having a small one, and then I'll get to talking. I'm getting totally. Mgtow is not getting any respect from YouTube, so I'm just gonna wait a second and see what happens. Hello, Anthony. And then I must start talking. I guess the thing is, what does Mgtow mean? What is Mgtow and the acronym? What is the acronym Mgtow? And a lot of people get that confused, and most of the time, the blue pill guys get that really confused. I guess it started with the Mgtows, and that's totally different from Mgtow. Mgtow is men going their own way, and it's men. It's plural. Going. They're going somewhere with their own way, but there is plural too. So it's men going there, plural, referring to men their own way. But what is the Mgtow way? That's the last one. That's the most confusing thing out there. Is like, what is the Mgtow way? And by now, there's pretty much an established way of doing things. What we'd call it a modus operandi. How we do things. How we do things in Mgtow. There's a set way in how we do things in Mgtow, and that way often gets transposed. A lot of men come in here. We see me and Joey. Seen this guy. He brought his girlfriend on with him, and he was like, I'm a Mgtow, and he was trying to redefine Mgtow, and most of his redefining of Mgtow was he's going his own way, and he's allowed to go his own way, and that's what he was saying. I got my girlfriend here. She was a attractive young lady, and I'm not going to say, and I'm going my own way, and it's my own way, and that's a transpose. It's transposing the acronym Mgtow, and it's men, plural, going. I think we all understand going. There, Their, there, as a group, as men. Men is plural, group going their own way, a well-established way. And when I think about this well-established way, I think of a modus operandi. We have a modus operandi in here. We have a set way of doing things. We have a particular way, a method of doing something, especially the characteristics of that something. What are we doing? There's characteristics of Mgtow in a certain way. It's like when the Salvation Army would bring people in. They have a modus operandi. Here's how we do things. In Mgtow, there's a here's how we do things too. It's modus operandi. The blue pill guys got a way of doing things too. It's a reckless way. It's always disregarding the risk in things. Mgtow is the risk aversion way. It's our way. It's our way of doing something, and that's usually the argument that I hear from the men going his own way with his girlfriend, talking about how Mgtows are incels, and he has to be more like me, and all he needs to do is buy Bitcoin. And that's a different way. That's a totally 100% different way, and it's not Mgtow's modus operandi. How you run your life and your finances is totally different. We get a lot of these guys that come around. Oh, that's delicious. That is really delicious. I get a lot of these guys that come around and they don't want to hear about or they'll say, oh, I know about the risk, and that's what makes me Mgtow. I know about the risk. And then they transpose it and they say, but they're willing to accept the risk in Mgtow. That's a reckless thing to do. Most of the time when we Mgtows get in these unpleasant discussions or these unfriendly discussions that we have with the blue pill guys, there's a simple thing we do, and I've been reading about it lately. It's called semiotics. It's the study of signs and symbols and how people interpretations of things. It's like if it was a sign or an emoji, and if you put a emoji up of wind coming out of the emoji's mouth, and it's like, it might be misinterpreted as anger, or it might be interpreted how it was originally, like breathing the breath of a breath of fresh air, like, it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. But in Mgtow, we pretty much define these ways, and we look for them semiotics, and what when the new guys come around, we're looking for signs and signals, and these are characteristics of the excuse me, these are characteristics of what we would define as a Mgtow. But what is that Mgtow way? We don't date, we don't co-inhabit with girls. I heard the guy lately, he had a girl next to him, he was laying on the couch, and then all of a sudden he was talking about non-collectivity, like we're not a collective organization of MGTOWs, and I'm going my own way, and he's laying on the couch with his girlfriend, and every time there's signs and signals that these make. Every time he came to a point where he was a little bit like unsure that she wouldn't take it as an unfriendly observation, he looked over and asked, like, what do you think? And then she gave her opinion on what Mgtow is. For a girl to give an opinion on Mgtow, on what Mgtow is totally an invalid thing, because it's men going their own way. But what is that way? What's that way that we do? A lot of people do it slightly different. We got the guys that, the PUA hit it and quit it guys at the beginning, the ones that can't quite pull away, and the twos that kind of get it, and the threes that know about the risk. But most of the time in Mgtow, it's risk aversion, and there's dangerous things that happen in risk aversion when we want to talk about risk aversion. And there's a term that I use, and it's kolakia. Kolakia is the term it's a Latin term that means it's another bait and switch. It's when someone uses flattery to get your, and then he or she or the pundit does he's telling people what they want to hear and disregarding what's in the best interest of the person or the employee or the voter or everything. He just tells you what you want to hear, and sometimes it's flattery. And we'll see this with Mgtow with the incels. It's like, you guys are just incels, but it always like just, you can be like me. And then they use the "you can be like me" fallacy. Be like me is a rhetorical fallacy, and Kolkia usually follows up the rhetorical fallacy of be like me. It's a sophisticated rhetoricians talk like this. They use these ways. We talk about the high pressure salesman and the excitable woo guy. And that's what they're always there. They're so happy if you just do life like they do life. And we've seen this with a lot of guys over the years. If you do life with like they do it, and then they'll tell you there's some, they'll use flattery, and it's like, you'll be just like me, and that's in the incel or the guy in his position. There's no way I could be like anybody else around here. I'm me, myself. In Mgtow, we talk about finding that self, and that person inside of you, doing those introspections, and why we do the introspections and all that is it's to look at the dark side of ourselves so we can identify when we're doing dark actions. I think in dark actions with the girls, and we're overstimulated by signs and signals all around us that are telling us to how to interpret life, and how we and get married and find a girl and get her pregnant, and that's all you need to do. And then we often find that that's the trap, and we talk about the risk involved with that afterwards. and we get these people that come around, and it seems like once, twice, three times a year. Last guy was the Veganator. Remember him where he uh, where he brought his girlfriend on? She was a pretty young black girl, and then this guy, Joey. What's that guy's name? I can't remember that. I must start talking. Yeah, what's that guy's name, Joey? That we were looking at this week, and he did a Veganator. And the Veganator is always good. He brought his pretty young black. He's a white guy, and he has a pretty young black. And I think that was just to intimidate, and he's going to show you Mgtows that you're all incels, and how to hold on. I'll find it. Okay, I can't remember the cat's name, but he was going to show us all how to do Mgtow, and his Mgtow is a Burgess individualism Mgtow. We talked about David Henry David Henry, oh God, what's his name again? Thoreau, David Henry Thoreau, and his movement, the individualism in his movement, and it was populism. It's called totalitarian. It's what's it called? It's we talked about that the other day, and I just went blank on that as I was saying it. Sorry about that, but it's this movement of Burgess individual, and Mgtow and Bitcoin Freedom was the guy. You can go over to his thing and take a look at that. It's quite funny. So we talk about these things and how we're going to get deceived, the risk involved, and how we're going to get deceived, and then that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that thing that we can spot. There's usually a sign or there's a measure involved in it, and it's trying to interpret the world that's going to work for you without falling in that trap. And then we get these guys that are coming around, and they're feeding you lies, and they're telling you things, and they're just not very honest, and they're using rhetorical terms and everything. It's hard to spot these things, and we have to become like these skeptics, and that's what we do in life in here. That's what usually gives us our existential angst, that we have to become these untanglers of the world's garbage, and we have to become that person, that skeptic, and say, no, I'm not going to believe that. I have to look at this, and when I look at it and I say, no, that's all wrong, and then I start constructing a way that's right for me, right for my whatever I'm thinking, and however I do it, but it's got to be right with the world too. And I look at this guy, and he comes in, and he has his girlfriend there. It's like, and I says to him, it's being spotted. We can tell the semiotics on it is wrong. There's a visual there that's just wrong for Mgtow, and you're trying, like every other guy, to push your way, his special way onto Mgtow. And it's just a wrong way of thinking about it. Mgtow has a set way of doing it. It's modus operandi. We have a modus operandi. That's our way. We don't date. We don't take risks. We don't do those things. Some of us are monks. Some of us are just, but in no way in that process is there a girl sitting over on our couch is spending the night every other day or moving in with us. That's the danger. That's the it's funny that this guy said he had 2 divorces before, and he's working on his 3rd girlfriend, and that's always seems to be the guy that doesn't never get it. He's the guy that can't keep his in the pants, and he's just not going to get it. So they need to change Mgtow just a little bit. They needed to make it. And Paul Elam did it in his book, and he says, I'm a man going my own way. And that's totally different than the original statement of Mgtow. Men, a group, plural, all of us, going there. Plural, all of us own way. The way, and this way is a sense of, way how it's used in this way is an established way, the Mgtow way. It has modus operandi included in that way. There's a certain specific way of doing things which have characteristics, or and it's well established how we do this. It's not a reckless way. We don't go into this with reckless abandon. That's the blue pill way. The risk aversion way is our way. It's a way of avoiding risk. There's signs and signals too with this thing, how you can interpret how we can interpret risk. And that's a good it's a good way to think about Mgtow. We got semiotics. What are the signs and the signals out there? And that's usually what we missed. I missed all those signs and their signals that things were going to go awry. and that's what we work on. And we work on those things in our lives, and we work on things in ourselves. And what we're saying is the only person in the world that's responsible for this is me. I'm the world thing that has to be fixed here, because somehow I missed it. And that's how we interpret evil too. We sometimes have to look at evil when we look at it. I remember a statement Lazarus made about he made the whole internet uncomfortable. He said females are evil, and he interpreted evil. And evil's a harsh thing to call anybody. We look at guys from Bundy to the clown guy up there, and he was burying the kids. And evil, what's that? Evil is a property of that person. And he was saying that evil is a property of the female. And the whole internet went nuts. And maybe that's his rage, how he raged out against that. And but a lot of guys took very kindly to it. So let me stop for a second. And hello, Chieftain. Hello, AP50. Hello, Pockets. Hello, Chief. And hello, everybody that's showing up. I'm not getting quite the YouTube is not helping me out here in YouTube. If you notice, when you look at it, there's nothing, and nobody's broadcasting. There are people broadcasting, but they're just not getting no help from Mgtow or YouTube on these things. So when we're looking for those things within where we, the only way to do it is I look at what I want to do. What I look at the darkness in my soul. I can't run out and say these females are evil in general, because that's a pretty broad statement. What I can do is I can look for the dark side in me, and I can ask myself some questions. I can ask myself some questions about how these things happened and what I was looking for. Was I simping? That's why I say this: go your own way, Mgtow. Go your own way. And all your sins from the past, it's an introspection of myself. And I seen these things that my dark side, one of the pieces of my dark side was I used to be a simp for that too. And I think all guys are simps for that at one time. And but all those, once you get past Mgtow, once you get past being that blue pill guy, and you come into what is interpreted as the red pill, take the blue pill or take the red pill, blah 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 blah. You all know it, and then you start looking for those things deep down in your soul and you start looking for signs and signals too. That how else can you do it if there's no signs and signals that are going to tell you about how that's going to happen again or where it's coming from. When I was looking at that video, I noticed that the female in the video was she rolled her eyes a few times when he said something. When he says, "Oh, the men get unfairly treated," and in the courts, and then he stopped and he was like, "What's your opinion?" And she went like that, and there was always these little inflections. That's a sign, a signal, body language, facial movements, things like that. That's another part of semiotics. It's about thinking about how these things work. Linguistically, we do semiotics. When we drive down the street, there's signs, there's signals, it tells you where to go. It helps out. It don't go over the speed limit, stuff like that. Our whole world is filled with these things. But in Mgtow, we have a way of doing things. That's what I was saying. I'll divert back to what I was saying. We have this way of doing things. It's a modus operandi. It's a particular way of doing things. And it's the Mgtow way. And I always say, you know a Mgtow when you see a Mgtow. When you talk to a Mgtow, you just know he's not simping no more. He's long over that in his life. He's looking for a way to just get by in life without having to deal with all the extraordinary madness and absurdity of the blue pill world. And that's a valid way of looking at it. We want to avoid risk. Risk avoidance is the biggest thing. There's signs of risk. Where are the signs of risk? Where are the semiotics of risk? We can ask ourselves questions. There's books written about it. There's just thousands and thousands of pages in reading how we can interpret life. But in Mgtow, we interpret life in a kind of simple way, and it's useful, and there's a modus operandi to it, and you start seeing that it works very well. But around here, we often have to spot the things that come in here to destroy that. And they'll use their rhetorical terms, and they'll use all their garbage, and they'll talk about the way they see things through the blue pill lens or the blue lens. But in their way, they often disregard the well-being of Mgtows. It's some shaming language, and there's always the shaming language involved with that. And I think he started as all Mgtows are incels, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. Some Mgtows are incels, some doctors are incels, some lawyers are incels, some most politicians are incels. That's why they became a politician, because they're megalomaniacs and they need to get back at the people, I think, for, prove themselves men. Some of every group are incel, and some of every group, and what they're talking about is the disabled or the disadvantaged male. And it's the same thing as feminism was talking about. They seem to think they're disadvantaged. Now, if we put them in comparison to the incel, we have a focus point. We have a perspective point to start looking at this. And that is what I always say, and I always bring up and say I'm the incel whisperer, because there's a perspective point to look at it from the opposite side. Can an incel move up in a company if he has terrible looks, or he has some stutter, or I can't do that. If he has a stutter, or if he has some tick, or if he's born just unsightly, can he move? No, the same as the women say, he could never bust through that glass ceiling. So incels are just disadvantaged males. Now, when we look at feminism, are we looking at it in the same way? If we look at the females, can we say that there are just some disabled females or disadvantaged females, incels, I call them femcells, that are the same way, and they don't deserve to get picked on. It was born that. They were born that. With all the cars now, they're bringing out their hot rods. It's quite fascinating lately. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we look at the incel and we look at the femcel and we look at feminism, which is about the same thing. And this guy was throwing around the feminazi word. He was saying feminazi, and I said, would you please point out what a feminazi is? And they're catchphrases that are catchy, that sound grandiose. There's this grandiose thing in their feminazis. They're like dragons. They're out there. And you know how I feel about them. They're just made up things and made up fables in men's heads about these feminazis. Usually the incels are just femcells, and they're women that will never break through the glass ceiling, that will never get promotions. They're generally the same as an incel. Maybe they were mentally challenged, maybe they were physically challenged, maybe they were intellectually challenged. No matter what they're challenged, the world should treat these people better, both female and male. But the males get treated a little worse. They get picked on by the other males, and that's what he started off right off the bat. This man that made what was his name there, Joey, again? Let me look up back up there. He made a video and he started off by picking on the weakest and the most disabled, and that's never a sign of a man. If how you get off in life is you pick on disabled people and disadvantaged people. I mean, I have no respect for those kind of people, but we see that all the time. And in the 80-20 rule, there's this disadvantaged group of men, supposedly, that's 80% of society. That's a grandiose thing. That's why I don't believe in it. I believe everybody makes different choices in their mates. Everybody's opinion. Some really good-looking girls like really big guys, heavy guys. It's and there's a million different things in between. Some guys, chubby chasers. We know about them. There are female chubby chasers too, and there's everything in between. Every person. The idea I tried to impose this on people. The idea of beauty is the mind looking at the mind, and that's a very personal thing. You can't give it rules, or you can't give it you can't say that she's just looking for that 20% top Matthew McConaughey kind of guy. No, that's everybody enjoys beauty, but when you're around it, sometimes you're just, oh, what a shallow person that is. And there's other things like saying, oh, that's a shallow person. I can never be around a shallow person. Women do those things too. And there's incels and there's femcells, and it's all the same thing. And everybody has their personal opinion on this thing. And it gets very sloppy at times, but basically they're no different than men. They think the same ways, but there's hypergamy and there's sexual cryptis in their in their biology. And men often do the same things. Can we look down into our deep side and say, no, I've never, while I was married, I never looked at a different one. Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's deep thoughts in that. Now, evil in itself, we got back to evil. What is evil? If you talk to say Thomas of Aquinas about what is evil, and he says the thoughts that you do all the time. And then the original sin, there's the original sin, and then there's these other sins, and that's what you do. You do thoughts, and even your thoughts are subject to that. And I really don't believe in that. St. Thomas of Aquinas was a great philosopher, although, and is worth listening on his opinion of evil. But it's quite a startling thing to say when you that the property of this person is some that's evil. It's like and evil's a thing that's quite subjective in the language. If you look at one guy thinks it sounds this way, one guy, if you took the moral monster on one end, what would be the opposite of the moral monster on the other end? That would be the misanthropic altruist. He's so altruistic. He's so good that nobody can compete with him. On the other end, there's the moral monster. You want to, you want to float somewhere in the middle of that, and be kind of a just a decent person and everything. And but you don't want to go to the side of the misanthropic altruist there. And we often forget about life's bars sometimes when we talk about these things, and we talk about feminism, and when Laz went off and he spouted out that females, all of them, every single one of them are evil, and I thought, well, that's kind of a bold statement. Evil is such a powerful thing, and it's maybe they have some qualities in them that we don't quite like, and we have to look down deep in what we have to look deep down into my soul too and say, did I play a part in that? Did I play a part in that whole thing? Yes, I did. And I admit that nowadays. Nowadays, it's easy to admit. I was begging. I was simping. I was doing all those things. I signed up, you know, under false pretenses. That's always one of the arguments. They say, Mgtow, you signed up for that. You deserve what you got. And I said, no, I didn't sign up for that. What I got at the ending, I signed up for something that I was manipulated through false pretenses. And that's a total different thing than what they say, but they're not really willing to go with that argument or look at the argument in the way it should be looking at, because these people coming around, they're going to have a million different things that they want to, a million different rhetorical lines that they just want to use. And those are pretty snappy catchphrases sometimes that most of us have heard most of our lives, or most of our Mgtow life. And what is our Mgtow life? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. What is your Mgtow life? If these people claim to say I've been a Mgtow since I've been a baby, then I mean, they should pretty much know the Mgtow way by now. And that's the last thing we're discussing. We're discussing that last word. What is that Mgtow way? It's not your way. It's not how you would like it. There's going to be some unfriendly truths in those things. There's going to be some introspections you're going to have to take about yourself. And you're going to have to look deep down into you and figure out those things. That's the Mgtow way, doing the introspection, doing the soul searching for what got you into that. If you fell in one of those traps, obviously I made a mistake. Let's find out why I made that mistake. And it could be a lifetime endeavor for some Mgtows. Some Mgtows get it right away. It's like, oh, I was doing it the blue pill way, and I wasn't doing it the risk aversion way. The Mgtow risk aversion way, where we don't date and we don't do those things. And some of us are I call myself asexual because I don't think about those things much anymore. I don't. It's one of those things that are easy now, and it's easy to do. Maybe in the future, we're going to bring on some subjects about desire. What is desire? And we'll talk about desire and evil. And I'm going to do a video, or maybe I'll just study up and do one of these about desire and what is desire and evil. And there's a lot of stories in the Buddha way about desire and what is desire and evil. And I think it tells a lot about our souls, and it tells a lot about how we detect things in life and the semiotics of life. How we going to detect those signs and what's going to happen. I have to look at it in an honest way, and I have to look someone down to the dark side of my soul, the dark side of me. Jung would talk about signs and signals, and then he would talk about the shadow man. And no one puts the two together, how they go very well together, and how they detect it. Well, he's talking about doing that introspection and becoming a better person. CJ Jung, and that's what that was about. But unless you read the next book, you would never put that together. So I just wanted to come around, and I wanted to just talk a little bit about the guys that are going to come in to Mgtow, and they're going to disregard the Mgtow modus operandi. And that's the what way we do things. And what they're doing is they're just doing a simple word switch. And instead of I'm a part of men going their own way, you're a part of it. We're all a part of this thing. It's the plural. It's men going their own referring to the plural still. The group, men. The gender, men. Once we start thinking about it that way, we can. You look at these videos being made about it. If they mention Mgtow in that way, well, they violated two two community rules in there, but they're allowed to violate because we're men. They're allowed to violate. They're allowed to talk about men because men are never good enough. That's what they're saying. They're allowed to talk about the men like that. But if a Mgtow would make an overt statement like Laz did about females being evil, if he made that statement, it would be taken down. It would be considered a horrendous thing, and it was considered a horrendous thing by the community at that time. But men is a gender, and we're a group. We fall under all the categories of protection under the community rules, and it should be protected under the community rules. And when you see these videos being made about us, you just simply write down it violates community rules. You type it in. You don't write it down. You'll type it in saying it violates. Men as a gender, and the group is there, and men are both plural. And submit it. You probably won't have nothing done about it, but at least you'll be righteous about them things. And those are the things we're going to have to work on in Mgtow. So when you see this, when you see this certain amount of kalakia, I call it when it comes in here, it's rhetorical kalakia is used when someone comes around and they're trying to sway you into a different direction in Mgtow, and they're looking at a concept in an untrue way, and they have no idea what Mgtow is, and that's what this guy was doing, and it questions the motives of the speaker, is what when we start questioning. I questioned him a few times, and he just always went back on this. I'll do it my way. And I said, well, that's not a Mgtow way. The Mgtow way is the group's way. There's a random disregard for the listener and what you're doing and what you're saying. I can see it. I can see the signs that there's a young female sitting next to you and you've been divorced twice. Aren't those signs? Aren't those signals? Are them just flybys on these guys? But Mgtows we're pretty bright group. We detect the signs and the signals. We look at these guys and go, oh man, the dude's been divorced twice, and he's trying to tell Mgtow that dating's the best thing in the whole world, and getting girls pregnant's the best thing in the whole world. And I don't know how many houses he's lost, but he's on the way to probably his third. Oh. You would like to do the topic of desire and discuss that, Go Saint? Yeah. I was always thinking about doing the topic of desire. Desire is an interesting topic, and it tells us a little about that darkness in our soul, the desire. And we see that with men coming around too. You have to ask yourself about the desire too. It's what are these men when they come around and they say, and they don't respect our space to think the way Mgtows think, and to be single males and do how we do it in here. And our modus operandi seems to go out the door. They're saying, I have these desires to have one of these behind these split V's next to me. And that's what they're saying. They have a desire to have a split V's, and we have to think like they think, and that makes that okay then. There's a real deep darkness in that. There's a deep, deep darkness. I think Thomas Aquinas would talk about that deep darkness, and Jung would say, there's the shadow man in himself. He's saying, you guys lose your right to have your individualism and do Mgtow the way this group likes to do Mgtow, and the way we put it down, that's good for us, the way we write it, that's good for us, the way we articulate these things in risk aversion. But we can't have that because he has a deep, dark desire. And that's a lot of people would say that's an evil thing, a deep, dark desire, and he wants to change the minds of men. We see how horribly these kind of men that have these desires, how they've changed our our politics, how they've changed our laws, how these things have gone awry, how men are treated in courts, and you got to wonder whether they're just protecting those desires, and that would be a very evil thing, wouldn't that? They put men in jail for debt. They take their licenses. They make them into these lifelong servants, these ATMs, or this paytor, which means father. You're a payee. You're the paytor. You're the one that's going to pay. You're the responsible party. And that's an evil thing. So they can protect their deep, dark desires. You know, they want a saint in the daytime, and they want a prostitute at night. That would say a lot about their desires. And then they think that the prostitute that they want isn't going to ever leave him, or she's going to be that Nawalt. You got the best of both worlds there. You got a saint at night and a devil at night, a saint in the day and a devil at night. And men, that's where that duality comes in. I talk about a lot in men. The duality of desire is a very strange thing. So one of these days, I have a chapter in a book marked for that, and I'll do that. I'll do that video one of these days. I'd like someone would come in and do it with me and take on that task, but I don't know a lot of guys that might want to do that, so we can have a back and forth and talk about it and have a little discourse about it and see if our ideas land in the same places. And that's what we do around here. To see if something's right, you have to ask the questions of it. You have to discuss it. You have to try to prove it with a little bit of confidence, to try to prove it false. And if it still holds up, it's right. And I think Mgtow over the years have proven through their argumentation that Mgtow is right, because we had to fend off all the you guys are wrong and all the arguments. And we still, to these days, we have to fend off all those arguments. And after so many years, you figure that people would start accepting that, maybe these Mgtow guys are right, because the whole world's been trying to prove us wrong. And I don't think that any one of them came up with Marcus talked about this. He even gave him some suggestions on how to argue it. He says the blue pill guys are so stupid that they don't even, I, a Mgtow, can give you some better suggestions on how to argue against Mgtow, because I do these same arguments in my head. I had to prove it myself. I had to prove it. How did I do that? I tried to disprove it. And once I found out that it was not disprovable, staying safe, staying away from these things will always keep you safe. It's one of those syllogisms that just come to a true, and that's it. Oh. So hello everybody on this Thursday night. It was a great day. It was close to 64 today where I was at. That was like, what is that strange orange ball in the sky? It feels funny on my skin. So I went out bike riding. I went to the store again today. I was looking for Mgtow wraps. I don't know what if you know Mgtow. They're the clear wraps that go over a vegetable roll. Then you get the peanut butter dipping sauce. And I was looking to make those today, and I couldn't find none in my little town, obviously. And I was going to make them, but they're such a pain in the ass. You got to boil a big pot of water, and then you have to have a T-shirt over that and pour the rice flour onto it and kind of stick it and then dry it. And I didn't really want to do that, so I was looking for them, and I couldn't find none. So I just got some egg rolls and did some dipping sauce with it. It wasn't quite the same. So I was out riding until I got soaked on the way home just before I started talking to Pocket Aces or Joey. And I was coming back from my ride today, and I got soaked. It started raining, but the sun stayed out most of the day. And we're coming up to that season. We're coming up to mating season. And that's probably why a lot of the SFM would say there's, oh man, it's mating season. The simps are going to start bringing their girls around. We see this every year. The simps got their girlfriends. They want to bring them on and show them off. Like, look what I got. I found one of those in the waltz. Yeah. Yeah, you know what the guy that found in the waltz is? Ooh, let me I knocked over my he's the guy that brought sorry about that. He's the guy that brought in the Trojan horse into and that's what this guy is like. This guy that he brought his girlfriend around lately. He had the Mgtow Bitcoin guy, and he's like the guy that finds the Trojan horse and then wheels it into Troy and says, "Hey, look what I found." He found himself in the waltz and he's wheeling it into Mgtow so a bunch of little soldiers can jump out of that and kill us all. That's my analogy to some of these guys that come around and they're like, Mgtow, I believe in everything you're saying, but I got a girlfriend and I got this desire and I got this dark side and there's things I want to do to her. And you have to accept that. And still you have to accept that I'm a Mgtow. And that's absurdity. That's absolute, because we're telling you there's risk involved with that thing and you're disregarding the risks. So he wants to wheel that Trojan horse into Troy, Mgtow, and unleash it on us all. And that's why I say it's rhetorical kalakia. He has a random disregard for your interest. He wants to promote his desire, so he has a random disregard for your interest. And he's really just disregarding the modus operandi of Mgtow, how we do things, the well-defined way that we do things. And there is a well-defined way of doing things in Mgtow, and every Mgtow knows a Mgtow, and everybody knows a simp fake Mgtow when they come around. Go your own way, man. And always remember, if it wasn't for every one of you guys coming around, Mgtow would be quite a lonely place. So you are Mgtow. And I don't do these things for me or I don't do these things for the world. I do these things for me because it helps me get through this life. And each and every one of you, when you come around, you help me realize that I wasn't so weird in my thoughts and I wasn't so out of this. And there was something wrong with this system. There is something wrong with the way men are treated, and there's a lot of things wrong with it, and I wasn't the only one, and we have to work on that. So like always, man, thanks for coming around, and most of all, thanks for being Mgtow. Oh.